Her work centers around research, mold making, and durational projects. I was very lucky to have worked with her at Springfield Gallery and show the National Death Project, which is something really beautiful. I encourage everyone to Google it. And she's performing tonight Survey at the Bottom of the United States.
Hey everyone. So this is a project that's like 6 years old now at this point. So I practiced the text, so hopefully I don't screw up, but it's been a little while since I've done this. So if I slip up a little bit, be nice to me. And afterwards we can talk about it, we can pass around the book. This is one of 63 copies that have been spread around the United States. So, a survey of the bottom of the United States of the lowest point in America. Death Valley is a desert in eastern California, flanked by two mountain ranges. The mountains trap the heat from the sun and trap the valley in a rain shadow of a rain shadow of a rain shadow. The rate of rainfall does not match, nor does it exceed the rate that moisture evaporates from the terrain. Within Death Valley sits a closed drainage basin called the Badwater Basin. The water that enters the basin converges to one point 282 feet below sea level. This is the lowest place in America. Face the rock in the way that the camera would have faced the 6 women staring into the hole in one of the first printed images of the lowest point in America, and the rock resembles a positive version of the negative shape made by the hole. And the 9 casts made with the dirt from the bottom of the United States from plaster molds of that rock which resides at the end of the driveway at my parents' house in northern New Jersey. And the drive from Chicago, Illinois to Death Valley, California with her to collect as much dirt as she and I can physically lift and fit into the back of the car. And the undercuts, and each piece that would make the whole can never make the whole, and all of the information lost with every articulation of the form. I learned that we launch expeditions into space to see ourselves outside of ourselves, and to know ourselves long before the coffin has lowered into the ground. Yesterday he explained to me that space-time is like a corkscrew around the sun. Today he asked me why I suddenly care about space. I lament writing these epitaphs brimming with masochistic nostalgia. I write about the coffin. As it reached the ground, it shifted, it creaked sideways, and her body, it hit the edge of the coffin and you heard it. So, imagine I am underground. I am 16, I am underground. I don't know of any kind of sadness beyond my own self-pity, but I've been continuously digging and digging and digging, and then running into the tunnels that I've dug, looking for all the things that I'm supposed to have, that I want to have, that I should have, because I imagined it that way. I'm digging for all of the realities that are supposed to be mine, but I always dig too far and I reach the body, and then I can't help but watch her decompose. So, imagine that I am 16. I may as well be 16. She and I, we fight over who will be the victim. But that was a long time ago, before I was angry, before I was so angry. And that was also before he thought to ask me any questions. And he can ask you what you believe in and what you are doing. What are you doing? What is it all about? I tell him that it's like all of a sudden there's rain and I am underground, and then my tunnel is filled with water, and I can swim through the water in the tunnel that I've dug for myself, but the water mixes with the dirt, and eventually I can't really see to find my way out. And he will tell you straight off that he has trouble relating to you, the things that you say, the things that you make, the things that you do. So I tell him that I'm running through the underground city that I've dug for myself, trying desperately to remember and avoid the chamber where the coffin is. For once I find the chamber and glimpse the edge of the coffin, I can't avoid it. If I could avoid it, nothing would change, because I wouldn't open the lid to see if the body rolled to one side of the edge of the coffin, her eyes closed, lips slightly parted. But if I'm in the room, I open the casket, and then I change everything slowly by seeing, slowly by remembering, for reality begins unfolding into another direction, taking the form of misshapen objects created by my own hands. And of my hands? What of my hands? Of my hands as they're holding him, thinking, please get harder. Please, this must get harder for me. I'm looking up at him, holding him. What will come? He looks down at me. He looks down at me as he orbits the earth. Is this how you like things to be? Is this how you like me? Is this how you like to look at me? When I open up the coffin in the underground room for you to observe me from space, is this the way that you want to see me? In my underground chamber with the corpse, contemplating the next tunnel that I will dig into the soil and try to run through reciting Sylvia Plath for I'm 16? I am the victim, so I must be 16. Crying, reciting those lines until they become so much bigger than me, cause me so much sadness that I can't see through my tears, that I fall and then fall asleep where I've fallen, only to dream restlessly about the ways to articulate to him what it's like to dig an underground city in a way that he will want to come down and live underground with me. And in my dream, when I finally do that, he looks at me for the first time earnestly. Over a year ago, I cut my hair to find myself, and I changed my name so that no one would be able to watch me do it. I'm not much of a feminist if I acknowledge this, but I changed my name because I didn't recognize myself without you. My hair has grown back now, and it's long enough to hold in fistfuls. I tell you that I like it when you pull my hair, and soon you are pulling more hair than I actually have on my head, more hair than any woman could ever grow on her head in one lifetime. And you on your great American male adventure, traversing the continental United States in grand, sweeping, planned gestures. You, with your beard and your beer and your father's reservations. Those same reservations that you once held out with an outstretched hand, pointing to the ways that they hurt you over and over again. Those same reservations that you tossed up in the air and up into my face, running from them in those grand, sweeping gestures across the country, toting your talents with your thumb on the back of my skirt to pin me down. Me with my yeast infections and aching crushes that I can't get rid of. My hands inside myself, my mouth open, my eyes lolling. I attempt Medusa. I try to forget your face, to turn you to stone, you, my changeless lover, and I watch other women licking other women, and I imagine myself becoming another one of those women, and I come with the thought of escaping you finally. With your thumb staked hard on the back of my skirt, you say, if I were another woman, and then your voice trails off as if that is a complete thought, as though I have never looked in the mirror before, and as though you are certain that I have never seen myself. The continental crust is thinner under Death Valley than anywhere else on the planet. The valley is bisected by a right lateral slip fault system. One of the two tectonic plates under the crust is constantly sliding underneath the other plate, causing the crust to continually stretch apart and thin. Above ground, sediment that falls into the valley from the two surrounding mountain ranges does not fall at a fast enough rate to fill in what is slowly sinking. I made doors for you to go through. They are incredibly hard to make out of dirt, so I made them for you out of contrition and humiliation. They are incredibly hard to hinge when you keep pulling me in every other direction but deeper into my caverns than I want you to. I build you my way in, and I conceive of the day that you will come underground and fuck me until you aren't mad anymore. I want it to be awkward, so I feel something other than my own circumscribed guilt for being in as well as, and then still looking for you after I'm sure that you've already replaced your idea of me. I know that to be the woman is to always be without words and lacking. I know that to be the woman is to be the buts, the ases, the becauses, the ums, the wells, the so's, the justs, and the likes. To be the woman acting as the heroine is to see ultimate erasure. And yet, the heroine and the female martyr may act the same, but they come underground with different intentions. The double bind is that those intentions go unread, that words like can mean anything but mean nothing. And so all of my sentences next to one another, and all of my words in those sentences fall into this vast fissure. It is the thinning continental crust that will still not thin enough within our lifetime, which separates me from you. If you draw a line between us, it looks like a minus sign. It looks like the longest, largest minus sign either of us has ever seen. When we were young, we learned how to separate out what could be burned. We walked down to the beach and threw it all into an old battered metal trash can. We watched as she lit the fire, striking a match from one of the matchbooks that she used to light cigarettes, and then lighting a piece of paper on fire, and then tucking the lit paper into the center of the heap of the rusty trash can. The smoke trailed out and hovered over the lake while we played on the seawall or on the dock or in the lazy waves and waited for the fire to die. Anything removed makes me the victim, everything else in a trash can by the lake. They found borax in Death Valley by crushing the soil into powder, mixing the crushed soil with sulfuric acid and cheap whiskey, and then lighting the mixture on fire. The fire burned green, a signal, a foretoken. Shortly thereafter, despite harsh working conditions, men built mines and began to dig. The mining quickly became obsolete because mine shafts continually caved in and buried the mining men in hot, dry, salty earth. The first recorded white men to traverse Death Valley were frontiering men looking to reach the gold fields in California during the gold rush. Many had their families in tow and all of their worldly possessions in oxen-drawn wagons. In an effort to save time and without heeding warning, they attempted to cross Death Valley. These frontiering men wrote that some of the Native Americans indigenous to Death Valley, which would have been the Panamint Shoshone tribe, followed them through the desert, falling back behind their camps. The men wrote that these Native American men looked like walking mummies, as the sun had leathered their skin and wrinkled their faces. Unable to find springs with potable water and suffering from heat exhaustion, the men also wrote that they fell into a hopeless, desperate fatigue that forced them to abandon all of their belongings on the desert floor. When they looked back at what they'd left behind, the trailing Native American men had picked up all of their possessions and walked away with them. Some in the frontiering party survived the desert conditions by feeding on the raw, rancid meat from their collapsed oxen. Some men in the frontiering party eventually reached the gold fields. I rub my face in exhaustion. I touch my toes to prove myself. I say, I feel dead. You do not frown. We both know that I have no register to understand a person that turns into a body, except the way that I acknowledge unknown and known men looking at me on the street and in the store and by the cemetery, and it's not the same thing. And, well, working towards disappearance is boring anyway. I resign to be a siren so that I can invest my charm and solve the issue of belonging. I choke back nausea when I feel like the other woman, and then I buy a pack of cigarettes and sit on the back stairwell and smoke the entire pack, staring 3 feet ahead as if a pack of cigarettes was a sign of my tendency towards ruination. I wonder if I am convincing as a martyr, and how good I look dressed up and brooding with my art inside. My matches are damp and they smell like mothballs, and I throw them into my dirty purse for later, for occupying, for a vigil, maybe. Edifice, you grin at your cunning through my pages. You discern that I am as tall as you are, so you shift my words on my tongue so that they spell the outside of me. I watch you do it, then I watch you watch my eyes for satisfaction. I fit the convention, but to you, I am the convention. And I wonder what you apprehend when you penetrate me, you, the allegory in my project. I wonder what becomes of you all the time. It would have been a shallow pool, and then it would have been an ancient freshwater lake made from melting glaciers, because all of the nearby rivers made by the melting glaciers would have run down to the lowest place in America, and as the water ran down to the bottom of the United States, it would have bleached all of the minerals from the surrounding rocks, so that years later there would be something of value in an uninhabitable and barren landscape. There is a body of water nearby, but I cannot see it. And it's all a metaphor because a long time ago you took a picture of me by the lake that I grew up at, and then I tattooed an image of that lake onto my back. And I think about all of the maps that I bought all that time ago, and that one long road that we took to get to that lake just so that I could touch the water. You were upset that we'd gone so far out of our way, but you softened after you saw me smile and jump over the seawall. Later, we burned the maps of the states that we'd already driven through in our fires, and it made me sad in a way that I couldn't explain, and I almost cried imagining us unable to go back if we had wanted, even though I knew we could just buy new maps, but there was something about those maps that I knew and I liked and I wanted to preserve. You told me that I was silly because burning our maps was easier than gathering kindling. Today, I still feel melancholic for their folds crossing over pathways that we may or we may not have traveled, possibly unable to locate where the intersection of the piece of paper would have lay on the actual road if we had ever wanted to find it. Now my shoulders are always sore. And all that I think about when it rains and I am underground shivering is your arm around me and the way that your fingernails sit on your nail beds with your palm resting on my shoulder and your fingertips pressing hard into the edge of my collarbone and maybe your lips on my forehead or your breath rests on my neck or I hear your voice again low and quiet with my ear close to your throat. I wonder how much rain it takes to wash a person off. I wonder how much rain it takes to wash off the mistakes that I have made because of myself in spite of you. Is it a problem that I only see myself, or is the problem that you don't really see me? I wonder what makes a person stay on a person. I wonder what part of them becomes evidence and what it takes to leave them behind and if sorry means anything anymore. A small stack of rocks is often used as a trail marker. Generally, the stack consists of 4 or 5 rocks. 2 rocks resting upon one another could merely be the result of nature or an accident. They are used extensively in barren terrain. The stack serves as a guide, a reminder to a passerby that they are on the right path or that they are on a path. Often a passerby will reassemble the stack or add a stone of their own, a reminder that they were on a path and that others should follow the same way. I am not lost, I am rattling. You wander above ground and I dig myself deeper. I call up to you. Can you hear me ask you where you are going? Can you hear me ask you what you are doing? You think that you know how and you think that you know why, and I mimic you lost in knowing while I am underground so that I become melancholic and so that self-loathing can take the place of my hunger pains and my empty feelings of altruism and my basic self-care and my displaced ethics, and I feel and feel myself wandering and manipulating and know that at least I did that to myself, and in the moment that means something, but then the next day that means nothing. I read the accounts of the first men to find and traverse the bottom of the United States. They are lost. Reading their words, I agitate. Their words are like your words. You are unrestrained. You know nothing of a shallow shape like emptiness. Your voice is my specter, and one day it will borrow the words to tell stories like theirs of the times that you found yourself lost at the lowest point in America. You will meet many men at every stage of death, decay, and disarray, wondering, speechless, how to fill the empty space that a human leaves behind when they move anywhere, they move on. Before men die of dehydration and sun exposure, they go mad and begin to dig. Women learn how to dig when they meet their fathers, but men do not know how to dig because they've never had to before. And if you become a corpse, I wonder what will become of your frame. I imagine the tips of your fingers gone and what it would feel like to have your thumb let off the back of my skirt. I imagine the space between the inside of your upper lip and the fronts of your front teeth slowly evaporating in the sun, and I already miss watching that space move when your eyes smile and you tell me something truthful. I imagine the edge of your hip the last time that I touched it and how it would feel without a shirt, then without the skin, then becoming just a sun-washed bone that withers to dust and then becomes part of the bottom of the United States every time the wind blows. Thanks.
So do you want to maybe pass the book around, and if anyone has any questions?
Yeah, I'll be here.